Actually, there is a restriction for that. 2 meters worth of pop holes per 1,000 birds. Yeah, it's all of it is. You know what's funny, man, is that you have this idea. Well, the chickens need to be free to run around. They're going to have healthier meat, and there's an aspect to it. I mean, I can taste.
I understand. Yes, of course.
You know, if you've ever had eggs from your neighbor's chicken, they taste different than the mass-produced ones you get at the grocery store. So there's an aspect to that I get. But the idea that, one chicken per football field, when you distill it down into the details for actual production, it's a 6.5 foot by 6.5 foot section. And my guess is you know what, man? It's just too funny. It's too funny that even at the top of all of these particular chains there's a guy with a calculator and an adding machine.
See, that's why I said there needs to be an app for that.
Oh, so you can know. Well, that's why I think that what's more important than having a free range chicken is to purchase your chicken goods, whether they are the actual chicken meat, the actual meat, or the eggs themselves, from a certified nonprofit supplier. That to me would be more meaningful. If you could have.
I think so as well, because once you insert capitalism into the equation, then it just all becomes, evil and ulterior motive after that. There ought to be, like we have, various groups, the environmentalist wackos who pounded the spikes into the trees in the Pacific Northwest, who set lots as in car lots of gas guzzling vehicles on fire. I mean, I think there needs to be some proactivity here where the chicken folks, they just go into these chicken farms where these chickens are kept in abhorrent conditions, and they break them free. Of course, the question that arises in my mind would be, would they be able to transition from the horrible conditions in which they were kept to a free range, or would they maybe need some therapy in between just to kind of prepare them for the shock?
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned therapy. One of my nonprofits has just started a grant writing campaign, and there is, for these chickens, imagine you're a chicken that you've been dutifully laying eggs in your 4-inch by 8-inch cubicle, and all of a sudden you're now in this new larger thing.
Culture shock.
And there has got to be a shock, and there's got to be an impact to the psyche of these chickens.
There's no question.
So not only do I see this as an opportunity to do good for chickens, I also see it as an opportunity for jobs, to create jobs. So one of my nonprofits has started a grant writing campaign to the federal government in order to provide counseling services for these newly not displaced, but outplaced chickens to deal with the psychosis of all this extra room. And this is maybe something we need to get on board with.
I think we do, man, because listen, it's not dissimilar for someone that's to someone who's been in prison forever, and then they're released, and then it's the big wide world out there. People have problems with that coming out of prison. So I think this might be something similar, and I think you're right. As evil capitalist, I think you and I could maybe monetize this.
Well, obviously, part of the goal of the nonprofit grant writing campaign is to assemble a manufacturing and a supply process that becomes perfectly non-profitable. But I can see.
Yeah, we could do that just like Al Sharpton does his whatever the hell his organization is called. That's all nonprofit, right? Wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. And by extension, then we're having lunch at a $500,000 membership club in Hawaii. And then we can also talk about how we care about the animals. God, you know what, Mike? As soon as you just kind of change your mind over to this type of thinking, there's a beauty to it.
Well, it's very freeing. It makes you feel great about yourself.
And at least for the progressive left, doing symbolic things that make you feel good about yourself really is the bottom line.
That's what it's all about. Hey, listen, I want to hit chickens. Anyway, you all buy your eggs. Buy eggs. Buy egg put calls. Yeah, never mind. That's a whole get into the market and stuff because eggs are going up. Michael, another California story I want to hit. I'm looking. We got like 9 minutes here, and we may get to another one after that. But this thing that I sent you about the UCLA professor being called racist for something horrific that he did to one of his students.
Oh, yes, I saw this. Yeah, stunning.
Can you believe how crass and racist that was?
Well, it's more of a microaggression, but yeah, why don't you share for the folks exactly what's going on?
Right. So we've got last week, UCLA, 25 students participated in a sit-in protest as opposed to a die-in protest because one of the professors, you guys ready for this, had the racist gall to correct the grammar and spelling on a couple of black students' papers.
So let me just see if I understand this right, because I've read the article and didn't get into detail. The idea is that grammatical errors from a black student shouldn't be corrected because the process of a white professor correcting a black student's grammar is itself racist?
Yes, they are protesting his, quote, racial insensitivity. He had no right to do that.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that unbelievable?
And this is a real thing.
This is a real thing. This group is called Call to Action, Graduate Students of Color. Describe themselves as aggrieved minority students. That's a quote. And that this professor was wrong in correcting spelling, punctuation, grammar. It's just, well, this is one of those where I sigh. You know, you sigh a lot when I ask you questions. This just makes me sigh. I mean, what the hell?
You know, the idea that there are students on the UCLA campus that are, quote, aggrieved, end quote. You know, my kid, she's entering her second semester at the private liberal arts college up in Santa Barbara, right? And it's a tough school to get into. As far as private Christian colleges go, it's one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 in the country. It's a difficult school to get into, and it's expensive. But her GPA certainly would have made her acceptable for UCLA. But her ACT and SAT scores were not even close to getting her. Frankly, they weren't enough to get her into any of the UCs. Maybe she could have got into UC Riverside, okay. But UCLA and Cal Berkeley are the number 1 and 2 schools in the UC system, and as far as nationally ranked schools, UCLA is among the top. It is a tough school to get into. And the idea that there are aggrieved students who achieved well higher than, 99.9% of all of their high school peers are now at this esteemed, really highly ranked college, and somehow they're aggrieved.
You know, it's incredible because, excuse me, listen, if anyone, regardless of color, was singled out and, downgraded, if you will, on a paper because of grammar, punctuation, whatever have you, but other people weren't, I would get that. But what they're saying is, to your point, you made the point, because we're of color, that should not apply to us. This Professor Val Rust is his name, Professor of Education and Information. And this is what this organization said, quote, a hostile campus climate has been the norm for students of color in the class throughout the quarter as our, listen to this, epistemological, I had to look that up, epistemological, episteme, the study of a theory of the nature and grounds of knowledge, especially with reference to its limits and validity. I mean, I had to read that twice to even understand what it meant. But anyway, color in the class throughout the quarter, as our epistemological and methodological commitments have been repeatedly questioned by our classmates and our instructor. Hell, if you can write that sentence and you know what those words mean, I mean, you talk about just you just temples exploding. This is unbelievable to me.
These are literally the leaders of tomorrow. I mean, not everybody that comes out of UCLA is guaranteed nobody's guaranteed a great career. And it's certainly not like they've got a degree from Harvard or Yale. But I don't know, UCLA is top 20, top 30 school in the country, something like that. So, I mean, it's amongst it. Let's put it this way. It's not like it is a Birmingham, Alabama, or Detroit night school, city college course that we're talking about here.
Well, I would even say it differently. I would say it's not like we're talking about some private, predominantly white school somewhere in the South, where they can say, y'all are treating people of color wrong. And we're talking about UCLA. This is not a conservative bastion by any stretch of the imagination.
And the basis upon which they're evaluating them. I mean, grammar and spelling, right? That's what it says. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar rules, for the most part, those really aren't up for debate. I mean, when you should put a period, how a word should be spelled, proper sentence.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's not like okay, you're not allowed to say this kind of phrase, or you're not. I mean, it's not like it's not like they're applying some sort of disputed standard. Words are either spelled correctly or they're not.
That's right.
And
it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Furthermore, out here in the real world, not the world coddled by a Brentwood, California, high-walled. I mean, have you ever been on the UCLA campus before?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's in Brentwood. So it's bordered by Bel Air, Beverly Hills, and Westwood. So right. It is the most expensive part of Los Angeles to live in. The areas immediately surrounding that are the most expensive residential real estate, the most expensive commercial real estate in all of California, and therefore amongst the highest on the planet Earth, right? And the campus itself, Mike, is absolutely gorgeous. I've been on the campus a couple of times.
Right.
So not in that world, but out here in the real world where human beings have to communicate with one another. If I get an email or a memo or some sort of whatever I'm doing, I am not going to apply an asterisk to the inability to understand and read what the guy wrote to me. I'm not going to say, well, hold on a second. This letter that I'm looking at for my business or whatever is completely incoherent and looks like it was written by an 11-year-old. I'm not going to say, oh, wait a second, it's a UCLA grad. Oh, hold on.
Of color.
You
know what, Michael? This goes back to maybe to a lesser extent or even a greater extent, depending on how you look at it. The whole thing where they being whomever, were pushing for Ebonics to be accepted as a language and to be supported within the public school system. What the hell are these people going to do? How are they going to function, whomever they are, when they get out into the real world, as you say?
You know what it is? It's the organized tyranny of low expectations, Mike.
Well, and it's the what do they call it?
The bigotry.
The bigotry of whatever. It's
the soft bigotry
right.
of low expectations. Hey, you're black, so we can't expect for you to spell. You know what?
Exactly.
We're out. This is the Right Mics with Mike Miller and Michael Hausen. We'll be back in a minute.
This is Chuck Dixon, the co-creator of Bane, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
At Independent Journal Review, we publish news that is objective, fair, and entertaining. As one of the top websites in the United States, it's our duty to bring the absolute